I can go on about this topic.
Realtor, take one.
So, a local real estate agent, Jess, why, if you, knowing what you know about real estate, why would you decide to hire a local real estate agent over someone from, say, Toronto?
Yeah, I see a lot of people do that. They'll be like, oh, we want this guy from Toronto, or wherever. So the person that you're hiring, if they live where your house is, then they're going to be able to get to your house quicker. Obviously, if there's somebody that wants to see your house, they know more about the area, what's in the area, what's happening in the area, if there's any concerns or issues to know about. A huge list of reasons why I personally would want a local realtor that actually works in that marketplace versus somebody from far away. And also, too, if they actually work in that marketplace, then they know what's going on with the sales in the area, the comparables. They're going to be more likely to price your home right. And I would think that their reputation would matter more if they actually work in that marketplace. So I work in Peterborough. I care about my real estate reputation in Peterborough. I don't care what people in Toronto think. I don't even work there. I mean, if I did have a listing there, which I wouldn't, I would refer it to a professional in Toronto. I just naturally would not have the time and resources to take care of that listing in Toronto as much as I would in Peterborough, right? Yep. So it makes sense to have somebody that works and lives in the area where your house is being listed. What do you think?
Yeah. No, I totally agree. I think those are like a very good array of like reasons. My brain goes right to the main reason being that when you sell a house, I really think that the price is so important in selling a house in terms of like actually getting it sold and it's selling, right? Which is what you care about. So a lot of people don't know this, but if you're not a real estate agent, is that there's two systems in Ontario. So there's the matrix system, which we're on. Yeah. And I think that's all of Ontario except for the Toronto Real Estate Board, and they use Stratus, I think it's called. And unless you're a member of both boards, then you wouldn't be able to log in to that board. So if you hire a Toronto real estate agent, the first thing I'd want to make sure is that, but all the reasons you said too come into play, but I would definitely want to make sure they're like a member of our board. So if they're not a member of Matrix, that means they literally can't go onto the MLS system, look up what's sold in the past 6 months that's similar. So say this house here, bungalow in this area, so you're trying to look up other bungalows in this area. If they can't look that up on the system, then they're not going to be able to dictate value. If you can't dictate value, then they're not going to be able to dictate the price of the house correctly. And that will determine the result you have. Because if you price it too high, it's going to sit on the market. Buyers start wondering what's wrong with the house. You have to lower it, price it lower, price it lower. If you price it too low, it'll sell. And if it is too low, then I'm assuming the owner didn't realize they could have got more. So then it just sells really quickly. The third option, which is the most unlikely, is that it's priced just right. But like when you price a house, like if it's worth $310,000, $320,000, you price it like $315,000, $319,000, $324,000. That's kind of the range you'd be pricing. That's a very small margin to like get it right? So you're most likely going to get it wrong. So if you're hiring an agent that's not local, the odds of you getting the price right really diminish.
Well, and also too, if say somebody's in Toronto and they're a member of the Toronto Real Estate Board and not the Peterborough Real Estate Board, if they're advertising your house in Toronto and not Peterborough, a lot of the time the people in Peterborough don't even know the house is for sale. Yeah. And sometimes the realtors here don't even know it's for sale. Yep. So I'll have clients that message me and say, we want to see this house, we just drove by it. And I'm typing it in. I'm like, it says it sold in like 1995. Like, are you sure? They're like, yeah, we drove by the sign. They'll take a picture. I'm like, oh, someone from Toronto, and it's not on our real estate board. Yeah. So then we have to reach out to them, contact them, try and pull up the details. Whereas if it was on the Peterborough Real Estate Board, we just type in the address and we have all the information. So I think that's a huge thing that people have no idea about, the general public.
Yeah, because of like the two system thing. Agents, we get so used to just going on the MLS, right? And you log in, you look for houses there. But because of the two system thing, there's a certain percentage of houses that aren't on our board because of the two systems. So like you're saying, basically we can get in the habit of just checking the system, and then you don't notice that one house that's for sale because it only be on realtor.ca.
Right, it's not in our realtor system.
Yeah, I wish it was all one system. It would that would make everything way better.
Because we use a different system for people that don't know. And when we type in one that's listed on a different board, then it doesn't come up
here. So we wouldn't know about it unless the client. I have had it happen where they're like, hey, what do you think of this house? And I'm like, Oh, I didn't even know that was for sale.
Yeah, and we don't
Right?
want that
Which-
happening, obviously.
It's on us to like look on Realtor.ca and find those houses, and we do, but you don't check it as frequently. So
Oh,
it's a
as
lot
our
easier
system.
to miss something. So if you're selling a house then you got to know that. And a lot of the times they don't. People, whenever I talk to someone who's thinking of hiring I keep using Toronto because that's usually where most of the out of board agents and buyers would be coming from, not like Ottawa usually. So, and I think Ottawa's on Matrix anyways, but if they're coming from Toronto, then they wouldn't have access to all the information, right? And they wouldn't be able to know like the value and stuff of the house.
Well, and also to us working in this marketplace, we know the best professionals for everything. Like from painters to lawyers to, anyone for the transaction. So just making sure everybody's in the same place, I think, is important too. Home inspectors, everything.
Yeah.
And, even the stagers, everyone that helps with the marketing. So there's just so many reasons in my eyes that somebody should have a realtor that works and lives in the marketplace where your house is. It just makes sense.
Yeah. A lot of like, back to when you're selling, the people that say they want a Toronto agent, I think they think that Toronto buyers have more money. So Toronto buyers are going to pay more for your house than someone who's not local. It's just not really how that works, though. Like, did you say that's exactly like black and white? I don't think it is.
If somebody from Toronto that lives in Toronto wants to buy a house in Peterborough, they're going to probably find a realtor in Peterborough to help them, a local expert, or look on realtor.ca. They're going to look on the internet, and they're going to find the house anyway.
Yeah.
So it actually makes more sense because, say, for example, I'm listing a house in Peterborough. I know a lot of people in Peterborough. I know all the Peterborough realtors. My social media is full of people from Peterborough. That's who we want to see the house. And we do, of course, do more advertising to get it out to other people. But if the majority of people that are seeing the house are from a totally different location, it doesn't make sense. We want to target mostly people here and then, of course, some extras. But the people in Peterborough are the most important. We want to make sure they're getting the most exposure. So say, for example, there's a house in Peterborough, and then someone from Toronto has it listed and they're posting it on their social media. Their Toronto friends, I guess, are going to see it, but are they even looking for a house in Peterborough?
Yeah.
Whereas when I post one or you post one on our social media, it's all Peterborough people commenting, their friends, sharing it with their family, because it's more likely that somebody from this area is looking for a bigger house in this area or looking to,
I know before COVID, because our office used to track it, right? They still do, I'm pretty sure. The amount of buyers that be out of board, and out of board could be anywhere outside of our whole board, right? I could define that. But basically, it's probably mostly Toronto. And I think it was like 85% buyers are local, so from Peterborough. And then the other 15% would be probably Toronto. Okay. COVID hits, and then it became like 30% Toronto, 60%. So it came pretty high. But still, the majority of buyers will be local. Right. So like if you're selling the whole Toronto thing, like Toronto agent, more money, Toronto buyer, that's the minority of buyers. And then you're going to run into the two system issue unless you're aware of that. And unless the agent pays I think it's like I know how much it is for us to interboard on the Toronto. I don't know what to interboard here, but unless they pay the fee to put it on the system, then you run the risk of agents here not even knowing about the house, which then runs the risk of you dropping exposure and how much you can get for the house. So that's like the biggest thing, I think. And then all the other reasons you said, just knowing the area, knowing the streets, the school districts, like limitations based on area and where you're at. You don't want to buy something where it's not too great 2 streets over in the next street and you didn't really realize because where you were it looked okay, but you're kind of in that bad area, so when you go to sell it, people are like and you didn't know that when you bought it because you didn't have someone local that would have known that.
Yeah, and it can also become like a disclosure issue, because if a realtor from out of the area doesn't know something that's supposed to be to disclose to a buyer about the area, their house, or what's going on, that can be an issue too, whereas someone that's local would know some of those things. And I think that having somebody local is just so important. And that 30% you said when the market was crazy back during COVID, where 30% of the buyers were from Toronto, those buyers were calling us anyway. Like they were looking for a local expert. Every day I was getting emails from people saying, we're looking for a house in Toronto, we read your reviews, whatever. They were looking for a local expert. So even though those particular buyers were coming from Toronto, maybe a little bit still now, they still were reaching out to people in Peterborough for help or calling them on realtor.ca and whatnot. So the Toronto people still came to us anyway.
Yeah, I think too, I keep coming back to the board thing, but the other thing I was thinking about the board thing is that because they're not a member, they wouldn't be able to see the MLS sheet and all the information on it, right? So many times you get a call from an agent not on the board, and they're like, hey, can you send the MLS sheet and any other documents on file, and you have to send it over. So you just run the risk of screwing up, because that's information that's being disclosed that if you're the buyer's agent and you're relying on another agent to send over to you, then what if they miss sending that home inspection report and they're disclosing that there's like vermiculite insulation in the attic or something, and it's there but you didn't see it, or right? Like those are things that you just want to decrease. And I think that when you work with someone who's local, you just you make sure that all those things, or there's a less likelihood of all those things happening.
That's so true.
You know, which is good. So I think our food's here.
Yeah, our food's here.
Order some food.
DoorDash.
So is there anything else that you see that could be a benefit, though, to hiring someone who's not local? Like, is there anything at all, if you hired someone who's not local, that you think would be a good thing? I don't have any reason.
I don't think so. And I also think another thing that's important is the local realtors work together. So if I have a listing in Peterborough, or someone else has a listing in Peterborough, and I have a buyer or they have a buyer, like we've worked with each other before. We know how each other works. So that can also be a benefit to our clients.
Yeah. Yeah, that kind of relationships you have with the other agents, right? So, all right, food's here.
All food's here.
All right, let's talk about some more stuff.
Did they just leave it on the porch?
I think so.
Oh, okay, cool.